Hi everyone, my name is Adiba. I am the Prime Minister at my local Children's Parliament, and I have been hosting the events of Pratyek and some of UNICEF too. I have been part of Pratyek for 4 years.
Thank you, Adiba, for introducing yourself. Let me take a moment to introduce Pratyek. Pratyek in Hindi means everyone, and it captures the essence of protecting and promoting all children and opportunities to every child in India. Pratyek educates and empowers children and relevant stakeholders to build a right-based, just, inclusive, participatory, equitable, sustainable, fulfilling, and interconnected mystical earth community.
India, on October 16, 2006, the 9 is Mine campaign is a participatory children's advocacy initiative to call for 9% of the gross domestic product, GDP, to be committed to health and education.
Before we move on with our event, shall we take a minute to pray in silence for our Mother Earth?
We invite you to a moment of silence at the beginning of our meeting to focus on the highest and most positive outcome of the discussion at hand. Close your eyes and breathe gently. Your breath reminds you of your vital connections to Earth's forests, oceans, soils that create the air you breathe. Envision the highest and most positive outcomes to your deliberations for people and the planet. A peaceful, equitable, healthy, sustainable world, a happy world. Lean into your vision. Let it infuse you with clarity, determination, and love. Today, let all your decisions, actions, and choices be guided and inspired by your vision of the world as we know it can be. Envision it, embody it, act on it, achieve it. Now you all may gently open your eyes and let's begin.
Thank you, Sandhya, and thank you, everyone. Here comes the co-members of our event. Good morning, everybody. We are all gathered here for a very important event, which is known as No Cop Out. I would also like to tell you to pay attention during the session because at the end, we'll be having a quiz and there are prizes for the winners.
As we move on with our session, I would like to request you all to bring in a pen and a paper so that you can jot down your points, ideas, or recommendations that you can share with us via Google Forms. The link is available in the chat box. We also have interpretation available to participate in Hindi, sign language. You can choose the language by clicking on the option of interpretation.
The COP means the 27th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The purpose of COP27 is to bring governments together to accelerate global efforts to confront the climate crisis. I would like to remind you to please review our recommendations written in our vocal framework report and executive summary report to come up with your own recommendations. The links are available in the chat box.
The conference will take place from 6th to 18th November 2022 in Egypt. Let us watch a video which will help us understand COP27.
Let's get together.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Let's get together.
Welcome to COP.
Let's get together.
The Conference of Parties, otherwise known as COP, is the United Nations Climate Change Conference. COP takes place annually, and this will be the 27th edition since it began. These conferences bring together people in power, where they pledge the changes they will make to reduce their impact on climate change.
Leaders must not fail.
Now more than ever.
Because time has quite literally run out.
The main aim is to keep the rate of climate change to 1.5 degrees.
It's now or never.
State the obvious.
There needs to be a collective change on a global scale to reach this goal.
That's no small task.
Let's get together.
COP27 is being held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, and is taking place this coming November.
It can and it must mark the beginning.
Past speakers include Sir David Attenborough, Barack Obama, Emmanuel Macron, Prince Charles, and many others.
Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
It's time we all start gathering round. Let's get together.
If you want to go far, go together.
Because climate change is man-made.
To join us at the heart of COP27, live from Sharm el-Sheikh, like and subscribe to One World Network.
Like family.
Thank you. Now, you all may be thinking about the tagline, which is 27 for 26. So, it means the COP27 for General Comment 26. Now, my friend Adiba will explain you what General Comment 26 is.
The committee is creating a general comment on children's rights and the environment with a special focus on climate change, General Comment number 26. Authoritative guidance on how children's rights are impacted by the environmental crisis and what governments must do to uphold these rights.
Adiba, it is being shaped by children and young people, especially from communities most impacted by the environmental crisis. Now, I would like to call on Karthik Verma, a young activist, to present the first general comment report on how our world is being impacted, and we will be representing our children's rights. Over to you, Karthik.
Hello. Hello everyone. So this is Karthik Verma and I'll be presenting this presentation on General Comment 26 and hope you are able to see my screen. So before we move forward, let's watch a video that why there was requirement of General Comment 26 and why we are talking about it. So let's see a video on it. As you can see from the video, which talks about Article 12 of UNCRC Charter, which basically means that we have right to express our opinion and our voice must be taken under consideration while making any kind of policy which affects us. So general comment is all about this, inclusion of child voices in policy making. So let's again watch another video from the chair of UNCRC, Ms. Mikiko, that what she says about the general comment 26.
Hello everyone, I'm Mikiko Tani, Chair of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child, and I'd like to make an important announcement. The Committee on the Rights of the Child has decided to deepen its focus on the environment and climate change. Over the coming months, a team of committee members will consult with outside experts, interested parties, and especially hundreds of children to produce what is called a general comment on child rights, the environment, and climate change. The general comment will provide authoritative guidance to the governments of the 196 countries that have ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child on what they must do to uphold children's rights to a safe and healthy environment. This will serve as an impetus for the global level change and a powerful tool for children and young people. So stay tuned. Finally, let me add in no uncertain terms that even as we prepare this general comment, we will continue to urge the governments to listen to children and young people's view.
So I think now you might be knowing a background of general comment 26, that what impact it can bring to the global policy. So again, let me reintroduce to it that basically what is about and how our voices are being included in it. So General Comment 26 is the official United Nations guidance which will provide authoritative guidance to 196 countries that how government must uphold children's environmental and climate rights to provide and ensure a healthy environment. So in this process, we have the first time in the history of General Comment 26, we have Children Advisory Team, which consists of 13 young advisors who are helping in the making of General Comment 26. And I'm happy to one of them. So in the very beginning, the process started in year 2021, but from March 31st till 30th June, we had the first round of consultation, to which we say children's and young people consultation. And we are happy to receive the responses from 7,416 children across 130 countries. And about thousands of volunteers have been working to giving an input and extracting and making a report from it. So we have few highlights, which is about 88% children think that their rights have been affected. About 69% children think that the livelihood have been affected due to environmental harm and climate change. There are more findings in this report, and we are looking for more, as this 7,400 children cannot represent the 2.2 billion children across the world, about 30% of world population. So we are again looking for more views and opinion. So stay tuned about the upcoming process of General Comment 26. Thank you.
We have Sandhya from Bombay amongst us who will now present the 10 ecological ask recommendation by 3,500 children from India.
Before Sandhya takes on, the purpose of all these presentations is for you to see what are rights-based frameworks that are present in our world and to revisit our ecological rights framework that you are designing. 3,500 children designed this particular framework, and we want you to be our experts now, giving feedback to it and making it stronger. So listen carefully to what Sandhya is saying. She's going to play a game with you, but the game has a purpose. The purpose of it is to learn some new ideas and words that you probably already know and revisit our framework. That's the most important task. So please have paper and pen with you, write down some words, and revisit the 10 goals for us. Before Sandhya comes on, can we have the presentation on the 10 goals itself? Is that what Sandhya is supposed to do right now? So it's the wrong presentation. So listen carefully to Sandhya's presentation. She's going to present to you what 3,500 children put together as the present charter of demands, which will go with Karthik to Geneva, which is going to COP27 right now with delegates who will come on the 4th and the 5th. Listen carefully to how she presents these 10 points, your green ecological rights of children. Over to you, Sandhya.
Hello, everyone. As we all know that by now that 3,500 children across India came together to form a report or come recommendation or a toolkit which is called Advocal, where we have come up with recommendations. And I'm going to take you through the 10 top recommendations made by the children, which is called green recommendations. And the first one is my green right to holistic green education. This recommendation talks about how there should be proper information on climate change in the syllabus of the schools and institutions. They should provide practical experiences, skills, and training to address climate change. The second one is my green right to adequate green information. This is similar to the first one, but here it says it should be accessible and child friendly. The information should be accessible and child friendly about the policies and data related to climate change and the government. Our third green recommendation is my green rights to genuine expression and participation. There should be child-friendly platforms provided for meaningful participation of the children in decision-making on environmental issues. And they should be provided with safety and protection. Fourth is my green right to recover and complain. It is very important when the kids, it is very important for the children to be able to express their opinion, and it should be in a safe manner. If they feel something is wrong, they should be able to easily complain and get it addressed. And even the children should who are suffering from climate change, all the vulnerable children should get immediate relief, rehabilitation, compensation to them and to their families due to extreme natural disasters. Moving on to the fifth, my green right to protection when vulnerable. So we know that children should get information and awareness, but we tend to forget the vulnerable children from local, rural, Adivasis, Dalits, and other vulnerable communities, including disability. They should be provided with data and stories of impact of climate change and the developmental projects, and they should also be heard regarding their opinions, and they should be able to express their views on that. And the sixth is my green right to the best green laws and standards. So this one says that they should be able to be part in enforcing protective laws and legislations and review environmental laws. The human rights, child rights, environmental earth rights should be ensured that they are enshrined in national constitution of each country. The seventh is my green right to expect good green governance. There are rights that we discussed earlier, human rights, child rights, earth rights. They are part of UNCRC, but it is very important and compulsory for the national and international environmentally sustainable policies of each country. They should include that in their own policies. And also, the children should be engaged in General Common 26. Our eighth is my green rights to green child specific risk and impact. This is quite similar to the ones we've discussed before. There should be proper measurement, and even we need to see how certain policies and laws are affecting the children and the ecological rights of children, and if there is a need to modify or change it, it should be done. And children should be at the heart of it, and their voice should be heard in that. Ninth is my green right to corporate earth responsibility. So this right talks about how we need to monitor business and companies, and we need to take firm actions against companies and corporates that harm the environment, and which are based on harmful mining activities, commercial exploitation of natural resources. So we need to take firm actions against them. And the last but not the least, my green right reflected in green budgets and green policies. So we need to ensure that adequate budgets for the protection of the environment and the environmental rights of children should be allocated. Ensure that governmental rights of children are reflected in the national policies on children. So these are the 10 recommendations, top recommendations that the children have come with, and we want you to, so throughout the session, throughout the webinar, we want you to go through these 10 recommendations and add your own recommendation if you have in the chat box, and we'll keep note of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandhya. I'll come in there before we hand it over to the anchors to say that these are recommendations to the governments. The governments must fulfill this for us because they are our rights, and they are the trustees and the carekeepers of all our rights, protectors and promoters of our rights. So they're directed to the governments, not to children and not to other younger duty bearers. So it's basically getting the governments to ensure that all these are fulfilled because they are our care holders and duty bearers here. So when you're writing your recommendations, please keep that in mind. It's not recommendations to your peers or your friends. It's recommendations to governments to ensure that your ecological rights are protected. Over to you, Ram and Adiba.
Thank you, sir.
Would like to remind you all, please don't forget to check the charter, and if there's anything missing in the 10 recommendations, please send in your ideas in the chat. Now, I would like to request you to announce the poll A to I, J to R from point 5, and then S to Z last to first. Now, I would like to hand over my mic to Sandhya to tell us the way ahead.
Jeevan, can you share the PowerPoint, please?
Sure.
This presentation was to be presented by the Prime Minister of the National Inclusive Children's Parliament, Tejaswini from Assam, but today I will do it. And basically, we're giving you the roadmap ahead. Today's program is not just another Zoom platform you're attending, but we're giving you a purpose of what you're doing right now. Basically, in short, you are creating a policy for the world to honor from now onwards of your ecological rights. The first place we take this particular one to is COP27. We've already sent it across to the high level political forum in New York, and we'll be sending it to Canada as well, where the COP CBD is held. COP CBD is different from COP that's going to be held right now. COP CBD is on the conference of the Convention on Biodiversity. Little different from what we're doing with climate change right now, but also got to do with climate change too. It'll be taken then to Karthik will take it to the general comments platform as well. On the 3rd itself of November, the PowerPoint will explain to you that we are having a conference of Asia level conference, and Karthik will be there leading one of the leaders there, and we would like you to join. It's an open conference. We will send this link to all the participants today. Please be there on the 4th and the 5th as well. On the 4th and the 5th, we will be having delegates who are going to Egypt to be present, and they will share with you in 3 minutes each what they are going to say in COP27, what they're expecting from COP27, and thirdly, what they think about your ecological rights framework. Okay, so quickly go through the first slide of the way forward. I spoke about. Next slide, please. Jiva, next slide. Okay, this is on the 4th and the 5th, we're going to have the program. We're expecting you to bring in different participants from your schools. It's going to be opened now to as many. Children from across the world will be present here, as well as participants from across the country. We have countries like Cameroon, South Africa, UK, USA, Netherlands present there, and they'll all be sharing with you. Next slide, please. This is the 3rd event which Karthik is promoting. We'll share this link with you. Next one. COP27 happening from the 6th of November to the 8th of November. We will also share with you which are child-friendly and child-focused platforms inside events. Please join them online. Next, please. I mentioned about UNGA, the November program on UPR. Violet from our platform here will be going to Geneva next month in November and taking your ecological rights framework and your other demands to the India's review of human rights. And today, you will hear us say very strongly that earth rights are child rights, earth rights are human rights, and child rights are earth rights. We're taking it to the G20 summit in Bali with the help of the UNICEF. We're taking it to COP27 in Egypt. You'll see 2 children from the UNICEF present next time, and they will be taking our recommendations to Egypt. Next slide, please. We're also going to influence the CBD COP, which I mentioned in Montreal. Next slide, please. In December 2022, the general comment process with Karthik. Next slide, please. The budget of India, we're going to meet Nirmala Sitharaman and say, look, it's okay to talk about rights, but it must be budgeted in. We must have children's rights budgeted in, particularly for education and health and environment, but also for the most vulnerable children of India. We're going to try and go back to the Ministry of Environment, of Child and Women Development, and say, review your national policy, because it's very silent on environment, ecological rights, children's participation, and other things. 3,500 children are already involved in reviewing the national policy. The next slide, please. We also are asking you to attend all 3 sessions, the 4th and the 5th as well, for you to get a full-fledged certificate from an organization in Geneva. If you attend only one of the sessions, if your friends attend only the 4th and the 5th, they will be given a certificate of participation. If you get 100 children to join our e-certing rights, which is actually a course which Sandhya will put a link of it onto the chat right now. We will give you a golden certificate because you've encouraged 100 others to do a course on climate change and biodiversity. Thank you very much. Over to Ram and Adiba.
Over to Sandhya.
Adiba, I did it on behalf of Sandhya. Will you please carry on?
Okay. From now on, we will be having different presentations, and I request all of you to jot down the important points. So here is our first presentation of this event by Aileen and Ruxar on human rights criteria. Over to both of you.
Before they go on with their presentation, I would like to tell you to please take this presentation seriously, because at the end, as we have told you, there will be quizzes and there are prizes for those winners. Please jot down the important points and ideas.
Thanks, Ram, and thanks, Adiba. We're going to change the order of the presentations. We're going to do it we're going to begin off with Bikash's presentation because of the order of the speakers. Some have other engagements and have to leave. So we'll begin with Bikash's presentation on the framework. Here we are.
Yes, brother. Agamjot will do the presentation. So,
hello everyone. My name is Agamjot Kaur. Today, I'm here to share with you the framework principles on human rights and environment. There are 16 framework principles which are basic obligations of state under human rights law. These principles proposed by Mr. John Locke, the principal rapporteur of Human Rights Council in 2016. I will share 8 principles out of 16 through a true and false activity where you have to choose true or false in response to the statements you will see on the screen. You have to type in your answers in the chat box. Hope you all have understood about the activity. So let's start. So here is the first statement. States should create a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment in order to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. Is this a true statement or a false? Yes, this is a true statement. Thank you everyone for your response. Moving on ahead. States should respect, protect, and fulfill human rights in order to ensure a safe, clean, and sustainable environment. Is this a true or a false statement? Please take your time to answer. Yes, this is a true statement. Moving on. Countries should not respect and protect the rights of freedom of expression and many more. True or false? You tell me. Please type in your answers in the chat box. Yes, this is an absolutely false statement. The countries should respect and protect the rights of freedom of expression and many. Moving on. Countries should prohibit discrimination and ensure equal and effective protection against discrimination in relation to the environment of a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Please type in your answers and tell me, is this a true or a false statement? Oh, very happy to see so much responses. Yes, this is a true statement in fact. Let's move on. countries shouldn't promote environmental issues through education, public awareness. True or false? I see the answers coming in. Yes, this is a false statement. The countries should promote environmental issues through education and public awareness. Next. Countries should provide a safe environment in which people that work on human rights or environmental issues can operate free from threats, harassment, and violence. Is this true or false? Type in your answers in the chat box. Yes, this is a true statement. Let's move on. Countries should provide public access to environmental issues, provide affordable, effective, and timely access to information to any person upon request. True or false? Yes, this is true. I'm very happy to see the responses coming in. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on. Countries should not require the prior evaluation of the possible environmental impact of proposed projects and policies, including the potential effect on human rights. True or false? Yes, this is a false statement. Countries should require prior evaluation of the possible environmental impacts of proposed projects and policies, including the potential effect on human rights. Let's move on. Thank you everyone for participating in this activity, and I would request that you all keep in mind these important keywords shown here so you can apply them in your life in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agamjot, for that beautiful presentation on framework principles on human rights and environment. That was what the UN put together, the UN Special Rapporteur put together. There are 16 of them, 8 more will be explained shortly. But we have with us an expert right now, Avinash Mohanty. He's a climate change expert and a reviewer of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, 6th Assessment Report, AR6, on its impacts and adaptation and vulnerability. He's involved in designing decision-making tools for effective policy making around the intricacies of climate change risks, sustainability, and environmental resource management. I will ask Avinash to share with us in 3 minutes what he's hearing now when he sees these framework principles explained to us in the light of the 10 principles that you see on your screen, which Jeevan will share with us. He will highlight the screen for us while Avinash talks us through that and says, you know, guys, I love what you are doing, and these are wonderful points. Maybe you can consider A, B, C, D for consideration to make this stronger. Over to Avinash. Before Avinash takes over, may I request all the participants, if you can rename yourself to your name, the first name only, your school's shortened name, which may just be Xavier's or Sarvodaya, one word name of your school, and the last one is the state from which you're coming in. Over to you, Avinash.
Thank you, Steve. Pardon my throat. I have a severe throat infection and fever. So pardon my throat if I'm not audible. I'll try my best to be loud enough so that you can hear it. And first of all, congratulations to what I've just witnessed in last almost 45 minutes or so. That's commendable. It's overwhelming, commendable, and it's very, very inspiring to see what has come up and how the conversation is moving ahead. I'm sure our future is in the right hands. And as a practitioner of climate change and as somebody who has been working in the space, I would ensure that some of the recommendations and findings are kind of seeing day of the light across some of the conversations that I have, even at COP27 and further. So without further delay, I would start with climate information because that has been my core kind of research pillars or verticals. So right to information, while there has been quite a lot of kind of focus on strengthening right to information, there should be three ways of looking at it, and this is one of the considerations that I would put forward. Climate information should be available, accessible, and affordable. These are the three things that it should be. And more importantly, once it is available, accessible, and affordable, it has to be palatable, because every day, I mean, India has one of the best forecasts now, but every day there is a forecast. I'm sure many of us don't understand what does that scattered, isolated rainfall by IMD suggest for us. So the climate information, even though it is available, it has to be very much palatable, and it has to be child-centric at one part. One of the important things that I see there is a miss within this 10 ecological rights is that inculcation or integration of traditional knowledge and wisdom, right? Communities by large have their own ways of mitigating climate risk and fighting climate change and adhering to kind of sustainable practices, but that is missing. So the children who should actually kind of take forward in acknowledging and including the traditional knowledge and wisdom. Third is more important, while we are talking of vulnerability, right, green rights of protection when vulnerable, and my green rights to green child specific risk and impact assessment, we should also understand the cascading impacts. Just to give you an example, if a cyclone comes down, the cyclone has got a different impact on a region, on a infrastructure, on a community, and more than that, it has got a different impact on children, because children are going to lose their school days. Children are going to lose their kind of access to basic things, that whatever they were doing, because schools are normally used as cyclone centers. So the climate information and child-centric impact assessment or risk assessment should be part of the conversation as well. And unfortunately, nowhere we have seen child-centric impact assessment by large due to climate change. We always club them. It has to be a single and siloed. Then more importantly, the business decisions that are being taken forward. ESG is the talk of the town. So ESG, while we are talking of, there's nowhere inclusion or inculcation of children-centric impacts and how children can actually contribute to the ESG framework or the larger sustainable business framework. So with that, I'll stop. I think these are my few observations and looking forward to hearing. Yeah.
That's a big wow, Abhi. We are really happy that you are with us and giving us this insight. We will come back to you to once again reinforce what you said, but over to the team for question and answers. If you have any question and answers, please type in your question and answers if you already haven't done so. Whenever a person is speaking, a resource person speaking, use it at this time to also write in your question and answers. I would like to give the participants time to write their questions, Abhinash. So we'll move on to the next question, next speaker, and come back to you for question and answers, because I don't think they would be able to type in that fast. So we'll come back to your question and answer and give you the next 3 minutes after that. Can we move on with the next presentation? Thank you once again, Abhinash.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now, here's another presentation from Sai and Praveen Bia on the topic framework principles 9 to 16.
Ram, will you please speak into the mic, please?
Sure, brother. Here is another presentation from Sai and Praveen Bia on the topic framework principles from 9 to 16. Over to both of you, Sai and Praveen Bia.
Hello. A very good morning and welcome everyone. I, Miss Siley Ingley, take on the mantle of an exciting identify the word game. So basically, the participants need to guess the cryptic keywords that have been highlighted and coded linguistically to give it a touch of your mother tongue in the framework principles on human rights and the environment rights? Drop your answers in the comment sections. Without much ado, I commence with the first principle. States should provide for and facilitate public participation in dash related to the environment and take the views of the public into account in the decision-making process. Yes, I think the Tamil speakers could make a good guess. The answer is hidden in the statement itself. Yes, decision-making is the correct answer. Next. States should provide for access to effective dash of human rights and domestic laws relating to the environment. My companions from Punjab, may I know the answer from your side? Well, let's see the answer. Remedy for violation is the correct answer. Next. States should establish and maintain dash that are non-discriminatory, non-retrogressive, and otherwise respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. Here it goes in Bengali. Substantive environmental standards. Next. States should ensure the dash of their environmental standards against public and private sectors. I guess the Gujaratis could give me a correct answer. Effective enforcement. Next. States should cooperate with each other to establish, maintain, and enforce effective dash in order to prevent, reduce, and remedy transboundary and global environmental harm that interferes with the full enjoyment of human rights. So here this comes in Malayalam. International legal framework. Excellent. Next. States should take additional measures to protect the rights of those who are blank to or at particular risks from environmental harm, taking into account their needs, risks, and capacities. Yes, thumbs up. Most vulnerable is the correct answer. States should ensure that they comply with their obligations to dash and members of traditional communities. Adivasi Lok. Yes, could you guess the answer? Indigenous people. Next. States should respect, protect, and fulfill human rights in the actions they take to address environmental changes and pursue blank. Finally, a word from Hindi. Lovely. Sustainable development is the correct answer. Well, all these 16 principles are very important to achieve our ecological rights. Let's focus on achieving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Saili. Now I request our resource person Sunil sir to give his inputs. I'll introduce Sunil sir to you all. So Sunil sir is a very well-known ecologist and educationist, former member of the National Academic Committee for National Children Congress, Science Congress, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, member World Commission of International Union for Conservation of Nature, Commission for Education, Communication, and also engaged in child-centric educational and awareness activities for more than 18 years. Over to you, Sunil sir.
Good morning. Thank you. It is very delightful to see the young children giving their ideas and ready to represent the country at international platform with their brilliant ideas and concerned citizenship. I'm very much impressed with the presentation and this design of the ecological rights, 10 rights which have been designed to be put on at the international platform on 4th and 5th. I'm particularly, I would like to suggest that along with this, I think, see the representation of our children in national environmental tribunals, demand for children's green tribunal, just like we have national green tribunal to deal with the environmental offenses related to environment and take legal provisions like that. We should also have children's green tribunal, so that children, they can raise their concerns related to damaging developmental works that are affecting environment badly. Along with that, I would also suggest that in these points, we can also emphasize more on sustainable development, sustainable, instead of demanding for complete ban, because the complete ban on anything is not possible in the context of exploding population. So the issue of sustainability needs to be emphasized more and more. Along with that, in India, we also have very strong legal provisions and constitutional provisions of empowering local self-government bodies. And I must tell you that the present representation of our children in these local self-government bodies is negligible. Because if the children's involvement is ensured right from decision making at local self-government bodies, from Panchayati Raj, from Gram Sabha itself, from Gram Sabha to Panchayat to Jila Parishad to district level. There are district level environmental committees also, but the representation of children is not there. Along with that, I would also like to add that the factors leading to climate change means most of them are pollution, unsustainable developmental activities, and as is also mentioned in the 26 general comments, invasive alien species. The sense of ecology needs to be inculcated in the youngsters. So the sense of ecology, biodiversity, invasive alien species, which are second largest threat to biodiversity and are causing climate change impacts at a great extent, needs to be understood, needs to be included, and needs to be dealt with effective citizen science platform. I'm saying citizen science platform, citizen platform. So our green ambassadors, young ambassadors, the child ambassadors, they can lead these citizen science programs to deal with the biodiversity loss issues and resultant climate change issues. I have long experience of interacting with child scientists who have done excellent research on their local issues related to environment and natural resources, and have made their presentation at state, national level, and as well as at the international level. So I would like to invite all these ambassadors, these child activists to impart in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Ram, over to you.
Before we go to Ram, may I request us to go back to, there's a question already being raised, Abhinash Mohanty. Ima, could you direct the question to Abhinash, please? And then we'll come to Sunil Dubey's question. If anyone has any questions, Sunil, please type them in the chat box. Ima will field them to different people. Ima, your question to Abhinash.
So we have one question for Avinash sir. So sir, the attendees wants to know that how can we share opinions to policymakers? What are the means?
Abhinash may have logged off. Okay, so can we, if Abhinash, you're not there, Sunil, would you be able to take that question up, please?
Yeah, of course. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, sir, sure. How can we share opinions to policymakers? What are the means?
See, actually, one has to be remain aware of the development related to environmental policies around them. There are different media platforms on which the government or the agencies, they release the notification related to the policies, laws, and other things. Unfortunately, our youngsters are less exposed to these updates. So that, and there are number of platforms on which you can communicate to government, because of the unawareness, lack of awareness of such developments and the related platforms, we are unable to submit or contribute our views and points. I think Pratyek can take the initiative to make a web platform where whatever the updates or the means these developments takes place, their notification regular and the links for provided to the children so that they could also give their inputs at different level to the government and administrative bodies.
Ram, Adiba, and Ima, are there any further questions?
Yes. We have another question for sir. What is the agenda of COP27 and General Comment 26? May I repeat?
I think the this agenda question may please be replied with responded by Steve or anybody from Pratyek team.
So COP27 will once again focus on climate change and the agenda of keeping climate change, global temperatures down to 1.5. I mentioned it's 1.1 already, and definitely not 2 degrees centigrade, after which is going to be irreversible disasters, climate disasters that people will have to cope, and particularly the most vulnerable, as Sunil has underlined. General Comment 26 is an addition to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the document that recognizes that children, the 2.2 billion children of India, have got very specific rights and more rights than other adult human beings because they're vulnerable. So they're going to add on one more comment called a general comment that makes parties of the convention, all the countries, obliged to recognizing this addition to the convention. It's on ecological rights of children. So one is talking about climate change, the other is specifically talking about rights of children. Ram.
Yes, brother. So now no more questions for Sunil sir, as he have answered. So let's move on to our another presentation by Sandhya and Charlie on the very important topic of today, which is ecological principles. So over to both of you. You both may take over.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be back again. I'm going to take you through important principles of environmental justice, and there are 12 of them. So let's do it this way. We'll play a game, and I'll be saying a principle. There will be on your screen, but a word from the principle will be having missing letters. You have to guess that word. In order to help you, I will be explaining you the principle so that you can guess it easily. And I know you guys are very smart because I saw all your interactions in the chat box. Very good. And I think we can begin. So, principle of state dash. This principle says that all the development that we're making, all the countries have the power and are free to decide how to manage their resources, the natural resources, and manage their own environment. Yes, I see many people replying in the chat box, and the answer is sovereignty. Very good. Moving on to the next principle, the second one, principle of good dash. So this one says that all the countries should not damage resources of the other countries. Very good. I can see everyone typing in the correct answer at first go. Yes, the answer is neighborliness. Principle of dash of humankind. So we all know that some resources are there for all, like seabed, forests, outer space, airspace, which belongs to all humanity, and their resources are available for everyone to use and benefit from it. So, guess the word. Very good. The principle of common heritage of humankind. I can see the enthusiasm in the chat box. Keep it up. Moving on to the fourth principle. Principle of dash and integration. All the countries need to work together to conserve the nature. So like we all know that COP27 is happening. This is an example of this principle. Yes, it is the principle of cooperation and integration. Good job, guys. Moving on to our fifth principle. We've heard this a lot of times, even in this webinar, dash development. So this principle says that the development that we're making shouldn't harm ourselves and even the future generations to come, and it should prolong. Very good. It is the principle of sustainable development. Moving on to our sixth principle, common but differentiated dash. In our world, we know that there are developing countries and developed countries, but all of them have some common and differentiated role to play in order to conserve the nature and reverse climate change. Very good. And the answer is yes, responsibilities. Moving on to our eighth, I guess, principle, dash principle. So we all know that there is a phrase, I might give you answer, but precaution is better than cure. So this principle says that if something is going to harm our nature, our Mother Earth, we need to try to avoid doing that. Yes, the answer is precautionary. Precautionary principle. Moving on to our next principle, dash phase principle. So if a factory, imagine a factory is producing some potentially harmful substances as a byproduct of its activities, and that factory is usually responsible for its safe disposal also. So yes, the answer is, as many of you can guess correctly, it is polluter pays principle. And we move on to the next one, intergenerational dash. We all know that we have inherited our earth from our ancestors and have an obligation to pass it on to its in reasonable condition to the future. So this principle says that, very good, the word is equity. It is intergenerational equity. We need to conserve our Mother Earth for the future generations, for them to use as well. Very good. Let's move on to the next principle, third last one, environment impact dash. So this principle says that it is a report, environmental impact dash. It is a report that says whether a project which should be implemented or no. So it suggests that the project should be modified or minimize the results of the environment. So we see basically whether any law or project or legislation, something coming up, policies, they have to be reviewed. And yeah, you guys have guessed the word. It is assessment. This is environmental impact assessment principle. Moving on to our second last one, the public a public trust dash. So this principle puts an obligation on the countries to project the resources for enjoyment of the general public rather than to permit their use of for private partnerships. Just like we have parks and everything, these are provided for the people and not just the public companies. Yes, very beautifully guessed, everyone. The word is doctrine and it is public trust doctrine. And moving on to our last principle of the environmental justice, principle of equity and dash. This says that everyone should have the similar access to community resources and opportunities, that no individual or group of people should be asked to carry on a burden than the rest of the other community as a result of government actions. Everyone should bear the consequences as well as enjoy and use the resources, but not harming the nature. And yes, the word is equality. It is the principle of equity and equality. Good job, everyone. We are towards the end of our game. And I hope through this you learned the 12 environmental justice principles. And I would like you to remind yourself of the 10 advocacy recommendations we had, and try to connect these two things and see where are we missing out or what are your additional recommendations, and please put it in the chat box because we are making a note of it. And thank you so much for enthusiasm and participation in this game.
Thank you, Sandhya. I see Vikramaditya has summarized all the principles in the chat box. Have a look at that. I'm going to quickly go to Durgesh and Varun, who are actually coming to us from a forest in Karnataka. Their network is pretty weak, but they're representing the most vulnerable voices of India right now and are there right in the middle of our reserve forests in Karnataka and representing the most marginalized members of our community. Varun and Durgesh run an organization called Say Trees, which aims to discover and scale solutions to combat climate change to enhance human and planet's well-being. So over to Durgesh and Varun. Remember to type in your question and answers. Durgesh and Varun, I know you are in a low network area, but can we come back to your question and answers later on, because Annie too is on a flight today and she's going to make a presentation next. So we'll come back to answering question and answers later on, if it's okay with you. If not, go ahead with we'll try and go ahead with the question and answers. Young advocates, please type in your question and answers to Varun and Durgesh. Over to Varun and Durgesh. Varun and Durgesh, are you there?
Am I audible now?
Yes, Varun.
Yeah, so Durgesh is not able to join due to low network connectivity. And thanks for the quick introduction. I would not take much of your time. I'll only emphasize on two of the points that were mentioned earlier. One is sustainable development and the other one is common but differentiated responsibilities. So here, just let me give you one example. The average carbon emission of human is around 4.5 tons a year. You can convert it into per day values as well. But when we compare it with developed countries and developing countries, the difference is so high that in India, it ranges between 1 to 1.2, and in developed countries, it is almost above 10. So those countries have all those assets which are required for developed lifestyle, but India is still in developing phase. So here what we need to do is, yes, we need to go further with the sustainable development goals, but in such a way that our carbon emission is low. At the same time, our requirements are fulfilled. So at say trees, I give you a simple example. We all know that all of our food comes from farming. There is no other way where we can grow food. So what we are doing is we are implementing one such way where instead of going using chemical intensive agriculture practices, we are going back to the what nature has already provided to us. We are using those practices where the soil can retain its life, its properties, and then continue with the higher productivity. I'm sorry, I'll not be able to turn on my video because of the network connectivity. So that's my input. So these two should go hand in hand, common but different responsibilities along with the sustainable goal should be interconnected and then put as one.
Thank you very much, Varun, for that input. If there are questions, please type them into the chat box. Ima, are there any questions arising so far? If not, can we?
Yes, we have questions for sir. So, sustainable approach in only to protect the environment, but what about the people? Are those employment opportunities?
Ima, he was not clear because of the mic that he's using.
Yeah.
Ima, could you please repeat the question? Yes.
Yes, Steve. The question for Varun sir, is sustainable approach is only to protect the environment, but what about the people? So the child is actually trying to talk about the people. Are there any employment opportunities in implementing these sustainable approaches?
Yeah. So I gave you just an example of how we are doing this. Lives and livelihoods goes both hand in hand. You cannot just support a sustainable approach in protecting the environment and neglect the livelihoods of the people. So a simple example is farming. When we are bringing in the positivity to the soil, at the same time, we are also enhancing the livelihoods of the farmer. So we can correlate, and all these are interconnected actually, that once we start an intervention, each and every intervention or the previous interventions which the government has taken are all based on anthropogenic factors where human intervention is also correlated to the sustainable approach. So while designing these approaches, we can link in how we can best fit the livelihood aspect to any of the approaches. It can be as simple as providing tools which are sustainable in use, as big as the policy.
We have one more question for you, sir. The question is, what is the importance of sustainable approach or sustainable development?
It's a very good question, actually, and I'll require some more time to put it into words. For example, our glaciers are melting at a very high rate. But we do need these glaciers. These glaciers were existing from past 100 to 200 years. They were formed after the hot days and cold days, and there was certain transition, and then these glaciers were formed. The approach says that our intervention, while using these resources, should be assessed that the depletion rate or the rate of usage should be equal to the rate of regeneration. So that is a sustainable approach. Means that at the rate at which we are consuming, the earth should be able to generate at the same rate. At present, our earth, means the resource uses of us, of humans, is such that the earth is not able to sustain for a longer run. The earth can only provide resources to the existing lives on earth for next 60 to 100 years. But if we take a sustainable approach where the earth is also able to regenerate, then the earth can last forever, or the resources can last forever. Here comes the concept of responsible production and consumption, which is also one of the SDG.
Thank you so much, sir. So the last question we'll take from the chat. So the question is, traditional methods will retain the soil's fertility, but what about the yield of the crop? Will productivity not decrease?
No, there are certain studies which say that once we go back to the natural practices for the first 2 to 3 years, the productivity may decrease. But there are other researches which say that after the third year of intervention, the productivity is much higher when we compare to chemical-based agriculture. You can take examples from APCNF, Andhra Pradesh Community-Led Natural Farming Practices.
Thank you so much, sir. So I told that was the last question, but I'm sorry, we have another question from the chat because students are very interested in the topic we are talking about.
We'll keep,
So,
keep that to the last question because Annie needs to move on. So she needs to present. If there are any more questions, you can ask Ema to type it to Durgesh sir or to Praveen, and Praveen will pass it on to Durgesh to type later on. But over to your last.
how do you start going back to nature if the soil is polluted by chemical pesticides and fertilizers?
So there are age-old practices before chemical fertilizers, before chemical pesticides were introduced to the country. The people used to have their old indigenous practices where they used to have natural inputs, including nematodes, and which used to work in a similar manner as chemical pesticides too. But those are more of preventive form. So what we do here is we go back to those practices, including green mulch, dry mulch, nematodes, Jivamritam, Ghanjivamritam, Thrapjivamritam. So all these natural inputs are provided back to the soil so that the bioactivity inside the soil increases. So what chemical pesticide do, the requirement of the input requirement of soil when filled through chemical pesticide, it reduces the bioactivity inside the soil. But when we provide natural inputs, the bioactivity retains its original properties. And through these activities, we go back to the nature and soil retains its life. Ram, I guess you are on mute.
Thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much, sir. This indeed was very informative. Now, I would like to pass the mic to Adiba and ask her to speak to take the session forward.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Please don't forget to check the charter. And if there's anything missing in the 10 recommendations, please send in your ideas in the chat. More different presentations in the series will be coming, so I request you all to please jot down the important points. So here is our next presentation of this event by Aileen and Ruxar on human rights criteria. Over to both of you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruxar, the President of National Inclusive Children's Parliament, and I'll be sharing a small presentation on human rights criteria. Human rights are universal, for all without discrimination, inalienable, can't be taken away, individual and interrelated. All rights are needed for you to achieve your potential. Inherent, you're born with these rights. While we have many rights, such as right to education, or be it right to safe spaces, or right to protection, are we the children really enjoying these rights? Let's go deeper and see how we actualize these human rights criteria. All laws, policies, budgets, schemes, and programs should ensure. What are these criteria? Next. So here, I have given you some hints and you have to guess the exact word. The word starts from S. Any guesses, please? You have to use the chat box for your answers. Yeah. So the correct answer is safety. Since children are more vulnerable, they need to be protected from environmental risks such as flood or any epidemic. So this word starts from S. Hints are there and the first letter of the word is there. So many answers in the chat box. So the correct answer is sustainable. Looking at existing resources, government should implement some rules or laws to ensure that these resources are sustained for all children and future generations. Next slide, please. You all are doing really well. Can anyone guess this word? This word starts from P. Yes. So let's see the correct answer. So the correct answer is participation. Children's participation is very important in decision making related to environment issues because children are most impacted due to any environmental disaster. Next slide, please. This word starts from R, similar like Ruksar, but not my name. So, any guesses? Okay, so let's see the correct answer. So the correct answer is redressal. Children impacted by any environmental disaster should be compensated for their loss of education and also medical treatment. Next slide, please. This word starts from A. Hints are there, and one Hindi word is also there. Can anyone guess? Yes. Let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is countable. Next slide, please. In India, a lot of children fall sick and face severe health problems due to climate change, and it needs to address. Also, government should consider some policies to support children in such situations. Next. Again, A. Any guesses? I request everyone to put their answers in the chat box, please. Yeah, let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is acceptable. The environmental laws made by the government should be relevant for children and should be culturally appreciated, including children from all backgrounds and vulnerabilities. Next slide, please. This word is also starts from A. So many A's are there. So let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is available. Child-friendly complaint channel for environment problems should be available. Next slide, please. See again A. So the correct answer is affordable. It is seen that most environmental friendly goods that children can use, such as paper bags, non-plastic lunchbox, etc., are expensive and not affordable by many of us. Next. Yeah, again, A. So, any guesses? So many answers are there in the chat box. You all are doing really well. Keep it up. Yeah, so let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is accessible. Many government policies on climate are not accessible to many children in their language, while they have the right to know about it. Next. I. So many answers in the chat box. Everyone. Yeah. So the correct answer is information. Educate and scientific information on climate should be included in the formal school curriculum so that all children can have the knowledge. Next slide, please. Again, I. Can anyone guess the word? What's the good word? Yeah. So the correct answer is inclusive. Opinions of children from rural area types should also be considered in protecting their traditional lifestyle, their environment. Next slide, please. And any guesses? let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is non-discrimination. Even a small children, a child from vulnerable, a child with different ability, they have some right like me to have better life, a more healthy life. Next. E. What starts from E? So let's go to the correct answer. So the correct answer is every child is equal to live like in the hot weather. A child with good background can enjoy coolness and the air conditioner, but poor child needs to suffer with the heat. Policies to deal with climate change should be based on equity. Next slide, please. This word starts from Q. I think many of you can guess this word. So many correct answers. You all are very intelligent guys. Yeah, so let's go to the correct answer. The correct answer is quality. The government, citizen all together to work for a better life standard, not only economical, but also better quality, clean air, clean water, better nature, environment, etc. So let's go to the last word. This is the last one. Let's see if you can guess this word. Oh, yeah. So many answers are there. So let's check the correct answer. So the correct answer is dignity. Next slide, please. We should give back dignity to our Mother Earth by putting action in protecting the sea. I want to invite you to see if all these criteria are included in the Advocal Charter of Demand. Thank you everyone for your participation. You all did really great. Have a good day.
And thanks, Rukhsar, too. You did a great job of that as well. And all the presenters. Apologies, Annie, for keeping you longer than we requested you to. But you actually are an expert on these words. The organization you run is called Center for Social Equity and Inclusion. You breathe in these human rights words. So over to you to respond to Children's Charter and see if there's anything missing from your perspectives of human rights language. Young people, please look at these words that Rukhsar has given you and look at any right they're talking about. Right to education, it must be accessible, affordable, equitable, and so on. And over to Annie. Is Annie on the platform or is she dropped out? Okay, so Annie may have moved out. She has a flight to catch. So apologies for that. So basically, in summary, if you have questions, I'll field them for you or one of the other experts present here. But in short, we're saying if we really want to talk rights of environment, they must cover the words that Rukhsar placed before us. It must be, the acronym is sprained. If we do not ensure that all these words, starting with S, P, R, and so on, are really included in this ecological framework, the world will limp forward. You'll have to walk with a limp because you will not be walking with dignity. Okay, so we want children to get their ecological rights, not just small little deliverables given to you, but really a rights-based framework. So we'll check with Annie later on if all these are delivered in our framework that we've expressed here from the most included perspective. Annie, incidentally, was one of the framers and the promoters of the Right to Education framework and was on the advisory council to the earlier government. So thank you, Annie, who was here with us and has dropped out. So is there any question, Ema? We'll take the questions probably later on if there aren't anyone immediately. Ema?
Steve, there was one. if I'm okay, we are okay to take it later on also. I'll just place the question and maybe move on. So there was this question: what is the role of government in sustainable development? So I was thinking that Annie would be the best person to answer this, so that we can place it before other.
So I'll leave it on hold, and we'll come back to this question later on. We'll go over to the next speaker, Ruksar, Ram and Adiba.
Thank you so much, Ruksar, for your presentation. So I was saying thank you so much, Ruksar, for your presentation. Now,
Ram, this may come in again. Actually, Annie is on the platform. She can hear us, but she's having some audio issues. Can our technicians please address that? Annie Namala is signed in already, but she's having audio issues. Will the technicians please sort it out?
she attendee.
I'll ask the question. She could be an attendee. Annie, if you can hear us, can you raise your hand? Can everybody else lower their hand and only Annie raises her hand, please? Annie?
CS.
Yes, that's it. Yes, CSCI. CSCI, that's it. You named yourself as CSCI, so we couldn't. Annie is signed in as CSEI. Could you please upgrade her to a panelist, please?
She was on the panel.
Annie, now you have access to the floor. And welcome once again, Annie.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think now I can see everyone. Yes. Yeah, thank you. I was able to listen to everyone. And first of all, I want to really congratulate and appreciate all the hard work and a lot of insights that have come in. So first of all, a big congratulations for this extensive work done. I think it has been so extensive that it does, it's really very, very enriching and extensive. Just a few thoughts to be added or to be thought through. The first point I have is in your point 4, my green right to recover and complain. See, I think we need to recognize that when you say recover, what you're saying is about what you had. And that is where you're asking the government to recover what we had. But in India, a lot of children do not have the necessities to actually live their life meaningfully. So I would sort of say, rather than the word recover, it will be good to use the word redress, so that we are talking about a complete redressal to human complete life and dignity. So rather than recover, going back, it's like building back better. We're not building back, we're building forward better. So it's important to understand it as right to redress and complain. The second point I wanted to really look at is point number 5, where we are talking about, there is oftentimes there is a contradiction between vulnerable people and ecological rights. Like we talked about differentiated responsibility. Like we say, I think Varun also mentioned it, the developed countries spend much more energy and use the environment than people in India. Similarly, rich people in India use much more energy and use much more of the environmental resources than poor people. So there is also the need for a differentiated responsibility within countries, not only between countries. I think that's an important thing, because today We talk of differentiated responsibilities between countries, but we need to bring in the differentiated responsibility within countries. And the second dimension in that point 5 is we cannot forfeit the rights and needs and aspirations of vulnerable children in the name of climate and environmental sustainability. I mean, we know today millions of children in India don't have water, don't have electricity, don't have internet connections, don't have basic food and nutrition. So we cannot say that India's environmental numbering and grading should be okay while we forfeit or neglect the rights of vulnerable children. So I feel it is very important to nuance that protection when vulnerable, to say that the environmental rights should not be taken beyond or over and above, or it should not be built on the backs of poor and vulnerable people. It should ensure that poor and vulnerable children have as much rights and as much dignity, and their needs and aspirations are built equally. And that is really equity. And that is really inclusion. So I think when we say equity and inclusion, we need to see that the last children's rights are protected adequately and firstly. And then the third point I wanted to talk about was the whole, the governance. The governance in India, we do have the governance at the level of local government. And I think already Sunil had brought this point up. I think it's very important to recognize the local government and ensure that environmental issues, climate change issues, local governments are given the right to look into this, because they will be the ones that can bring in the community perspectives, and they will be also the ones that can bring in the adequate necessary changes that are needed, and children's role and participation in that becomes very important. These are some points, but I really want to congratulate and thank everyone that has worked on this and for putting up such a wonderful presentation today too. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. That was really so powerful and really meaningful. And we will incorporate all these ideas into the charter that they're evolving. This is really a wonderful example of adults and children working together, young people from the experiences coming up with solutions which are really so dynamic, and adults inputting and supporting them. Thanks, Annie, for that. Are there any questions, Ema, to Annie?
Okay, so our first question is, what is the role of government in sustainable development?
See, the government is the signatory for the sustainable development. People are not the signatories for the sustainable development. Just like our government is responsible for the constitution and legal implementation, government is the one that has signed at the United Nations for all the 17 goals and the 169 targets. So they are responsible to fulfill it. But again, it is not a government principle alone. It's a national policy. I mean, the government on behalf of the country and the people have signed it. So the government is responsible to ensure that it is implemented. But the government has a responsibility to bring in all other stakeholders, children, adults, people, business, civil society, so that together it becomes a national objective and a global objective that we can all fulfill together. I think the best thing about sustainable development is that it is the government's responsibility, it is a global principle, and it needs to bring in every other stakeholder for sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your answer. Considering the time, we have one last question. How do we make rights of children available to the children of minorities that don't have access to their rights?
See, the minority rights or rights of vulnerable people, just minorities is one big, large group of vulnerable people. They are protected by 3 sectors of people. One, or duty bearers, I would say. One is the government itself. So the government itself has to ensure that the rights of minorities are protected in terms of life, livelihood, participation, protection, every education, health, any other, all the rights that the government has. It has to also include or have a special provision for minority communities. The second is that society, because we do see today a lot of violence on minority communities by the rest of society. The dominant communities create communal violence, create tensions, there is fights created. So I think there is a huge role of society which needs to be promoted by all institutions, whether it's educational institutions, religious institutions. So I think there is the role of society in promoting the rights of minority communities. And I would say the minority communities themselves have a right to protect their own rights, where they are able to articulate, where they are able to demand, where they are able to represent for their rights. So it is all these three groups of people that need to come to protect the minority rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie, Adiba, and Ram. We'll move to the next person. But before that, I want to just acknowledge that Virendra has been writing a lot of comments in the chat box, inviting all of you to keep writing in your progressive and evolving recommendations to the charter as you hear speakers. I'm really glad that that all you participants are here today, listening into the inputs of Annie and other resource persons, and broadening your own skills at being environmental proactivists. What we're doing today is really giving you the language to be able to really talk about rights-based activism rather than just planting trees and picking up plastic. You need to do that, but along with ensuring that it's for everyone, particularly the last child. To stay on, because we're going to track down all of you who participated in this session, as well as the sessions on the 4th and the 5th, and record you as inputters, people who gave us inputs, children who gave us inputs for the final document that will go to Geneva. So your name of yourself and your school and your organization will be recorded in the input we finally sent to Geneva on the General Comment 26. So you're part of history, creating a global document that will be here to stay. And you can tell your next generation and generations to come that you were part of this movement that acknowledged ecological rights for children. Please also bring in other players and other friends of yours on the 4th and the 5th, where we'll be having international players and participants there. Over to Ram and Adiba.
Thank you so much, Annie ma'am, for the information and the guidance. Please don't, I would like to request you all to please don't forget to check the charter. And if there's any new recommendation, you can put that in the chat box.
Request all the child attendees not to share their personal information or, for example, their contact number, their email IDs, or your social media. Please choose your preferred language. Those who want to hear in Hindi, please select the Hindi interpretation channel and do not mute the main session. Those who wish to attend the session in sign language, please pin the video of Ms. Erin on your screen. So moving ahead with our session, now I would like to call Karthik and Vailati on the very exciting and important topic of today, which is ecological rights for children. Over to both of you. You may take over.
Greetings everyone. This is Soumya here from Haveri district, Karnataka. I'm currently working as a volunteer in a team working for the preparation of General Comment 26. By now, you might have come to know about the General Comment and its process of working. Now let's focus on an international report based on ecological rights of children. The United Nations Special Rapporteur's report on ecological rights of the children recommends some measures on tackling climate change and safeguarding child rights. It addresses the topic like children are the future of environment, issues which are affecting children and their future, what governments can do to address these issues. It also addresses the matters of ecological rights each child is entitled to, and lastly, what we as children at an individual level can do to make our voices heard on a global platform. After going through the report, let's learn some more interesting facts through an interesting task, which is the question and answer round. Let me explain how it works. The upcoming slides will be provided with a sentence. Each sentence hints at a word. You are supposed to guess which word given below relates the most to the sentence. You can notice a code given in front of every word in the form of alphabets. After finding the right answer, you are supposed to drop in the code in front of that word in the chat box. Hope you are clear with the aspects of the question round, anticipating for the higher number of participations. So let's begin with the first question. The first question goes as follows. Children should be able to learn by being outside in nature, taking part in the projects about the issues affecting the environment locally and across the world. So what do you think, which word given below relates the most to the sentence? You can drop in the code in the chat box. Waiting for your responses. That's an amazing response and getting many more right answers. And the correct answer for this question is education, whose code is E. So let's move on to the second question. Knowledge and data on the environment should be made available to children in ways that they can understand. So which word do you think is the correct answer for this question? Please drop in the code in the chat box. Yes, receiving many right answers. That's amazing. So the right answer for this question is information, whose code is C. And now let's move on to the third question. Leaders should speak to children and their experiences and ideas into account when making decisions on the environment. Please drop in the code which you think is the right answer. So the right answer for this question is government's responsibility, whose code is YEF. And congratulations for the ones who have got it correct. Now let's move on to the fourth question. Grievances should be dealt with quickly and fairly, and children should be able to get a response and solution. What do you think is the right answer for this question? The right answer is complaints, whose code is A, and we have received many right answers. Congratulations. Let's move on to the fifth question. Government should make sure that children enjoy their rights equally. Some children face extra challenges. Please drop in the correct answer in the chat box. The right answer for this question is last child, whose code is B. Let's move on to the next question. Respect, protect, and fulfill children's rights when adopting and implementing environment-related agreements, policies, and action to address environmental harm. What do you think is the right answer for this question? Yes, we are receiving many right answers. And as you all said, the right answer for this question is child defenders, whose code is H. Congratulations. And now let's move on to the next question. Give formal recognition of the human right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment by the UN. What do you think is the right answer? Exactly, you got that right. The answer for the question is law and order, whose code is I. Now coming to the last question. Providing safe and empowering environment initiatives by young people and children to protect and promote human rights relating to environment. And yes, as you all have guessed, the right question is D, that is child impact. Congratulations to the ones who have got the answers correct, and no worries in case you have failed to answer it rightly. We all are in the process of learning. Hope you have enjoyed this game and gotten some interesting insights of climate change and child rights. And now comes the most important part of how we can contribute in mitigating the climate change, what we can do at an individual level. At first, it is necessary to get informed via knowing facts through books, internet, and various other sources. Secondly, we can spread the word in schools and on social media handles. Thirdly, we can even join an environmental group in our school or community or raise issues in the youth parliament. We can even lodge a complaint by contacting local authority or speaking to a responsible adult about taking legal action. Together, we can save our planet, safeguard child rights, and make our planet a very sustainable one. Thank you.
Thank you, Samya. So it was a great presentation. Now we have Parneet with us to address the presentation. Over to you.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this distinguished panel. And I would like to congratulate all of you for such a commendable job. At such a young age, you guys are talking about revolutionary action and proactive action. So thank you so much for doing that for the coming generation. And since you guys are the leaders of tomorrow, I'm very proud to hear that, proud to see you guys taking the mantle. So there are a couple of things that I would like to focus on. Firstly, the fact that there should be an inclusion of disaster management and disaster preparedness in in school curriculum, and that is one thing that I would like to draw your attention towards, because we are talking about mitigation and adaptations. At the same time, there is need to prepare the children, you guys, for what's to come. And secondly, I would like to draw your attention towards psychological impact of climate change, especially on mental well-being of the climate activists. So, uh, children especially are proportionately affected by PTSD, anxiety, depression, after the catastrophe. So there should be an inclusion of psychological rehabilitation, and in case of loss and damage and due to estrangement or from parents and death of parents, the government should also bring out mechanisms for psychological rehabilitation and mental well-being. Now, since I am working on a project called Poetry for Planet, which is to address mental well-being of climate activists, and also to highlight, the stories of climate activists from across the world who are working on ground through poetry and prose, I would like to focus more on, having a creative appeal and using poetry as to raise climate consciousness among students. So I would suggest that you involve more creative ways of sending out the message, and especially involve creative community in the create generating awareness. Um, Secondly, since we have already talked about keeping children at the center of data, data-centric policies, I would also like to recommend that children themselves should be data providers, and they should be authorities and agencies in defining the policies by becoming active agents in providing the data. For that, the government should include mechanisms for mechanisms and surveys through which they can, collect data from children like you, and Abhinash already mentioned about the inclusion of indigenous practices and knowledge, India itself is rich in indigenous knowledge. So I would suggest that there should be a focus on adding indigenous knowledge and practices in the school curriculum as well. Then after the climate catastrophe strikes, what happens is we see that there is immense disruption of educational facilities. So there should be provisions for immediate restoration of educational facilities to these students, because education is one thing that nobody should be disrupted with. We saw in COVID pandemic that education was one thing that we saw was disrupted, and it has caused a lot of it has put us at a back pedal. So I would suggest that I would like to add more on more investment in education, and especially I see that 9 is Mine is working on allocating 9% of GDP to education. I would suggest that there should be more focus on financing climate projects which are being led by climate activists like you. Similarly, there should be an inclusion of implementation of accountability mechanisms. I see that there's a lot of focus on addressing these things in inclusion of certain guidelines and principles, but I would say that there should be again more focus on the implementation and the accountability mechanisms in all these in the charter. Then you children and the youth, right? We can engage in the boycott of unsustainable industries and unsustainable products. Like we see that so many industries like the Coca-Cola has. I would suggest that we should be we should be at the forefront of boycotting and nudging corporate practices. Thank you so much for giving me the floor.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Praneeth. Praneeth, I should have introduced you earlier, but this is on a line of Coca-Cola. Incidentally, COP27 is sponsored by Coca-Cola. But
Yeah, exactly.
that's the irony of it all. But coming back to Praneeth's introduction, she is a proactive and creative change maker, as you've heard. She is a graduate in political science and postgraduate from environmental law and policy from WWL and the National Law Policy. There's a long list of I could introduce you to. She is the founder of Girl Up Zuban, and she's a serving advisor of the Nigerian NGO called JED Child Trust Foundation. She was chosen this year as Max Tabiso Atkins Climate Ambassador by the Global Youth Climate Network. We're hoping to open this particular network for next week's session on ground. So we look forward to this engagement next week. Over to the question and answers if there are any, Ima.
Thank you so much, Parmeet, ma'am. That was so encouraging, and it will encourage more students and child attendees who are here. So, just one question for you: that how can the public help to reduce the psychological impact that affects environmental activists?
So I would like to address this. I particularly am focusing on connecting with psychologists, especially who are working on eco-anxiety. The first thing is that the first step would be to generate awareness that the climate activists themselves face a lot of psychological impact because of the tensions and the problems that arise. And at my level, I'm working on one initiative called Poetry for Planet, which is specifically meant to address this. And as individuals, I think generating awareness and even involving mental health practitioners in encouraging discourse on this would be one way to go ahead with it. And once again, and one more thing, nature is the place. If you want to relieve your stress, nature is where you go. So connect and immerse yourself in nature. That is one way you can address your mental health queries, even though as climate activists. So reconnect with nature would be one thing that I would like to share.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Brother, do we have some time for another one more question?
We'll take one more and we'll hand it over next to Pragya.
Yes, thank you so much, brother. So, ma'am, here's another question for you. How can we involve the companies and the firms in achieving our goals as they harm the environment?
The first thing that I shared is to start boycotting unsustainable industries by choosing not to indulge in fast fashion. This is one thing that you can do at the individual level, but at the other level, you can lobby and you can engage with them as partners. For example, I propose the inclusion of indigenous knowledge in the business framework in a gender responsive manner. So suggesting consulting and lobbying with these industries, and it would be one way to go ahead. And the second would be at the individual level, start a mass campaign of boycotting unsustainable practices in companies so that they can be shifted to a sustainable approach.
Thank you, Praneeth, for that, and thank you, Ram. I'm inviting all the participants here to prepare for the 4th and the 5th. We're going to have delegates from across the world. Today we had Indian delegate people coming in and giving you inputs. I know I've already got lots of responses coming in that it's so informative and so educative that we're preparing pro-activists for the future. And thank you for engaging fully. But we're inviting you now to go back to your principles and ensuring that for next weekend, 4th and the 5th, when we're going to have speakers from across the world who are going to go to COP27, and they're going to take your document with them to the conversations and ensure that everybody's speaking about ecological rights for children. So we're inviting you to invite your principals to bring in another 100 students on board. It's going to be a large platform for over 1,000 participants. So let's use it fully. Please be proactive right now and get in as many people to register for the 4th and the 5th. It'll be the same registration link. We just open it up to many more from each school. But be a proactivist and get many advocates trained for ecological rights for children. Over to you, Ram, as you introduce Pragya and the idea of ecological rights for children. Business principles, I made a mistake.
Now we have Naman and Snehaldi who will present us the PP. Over to both of you.
Thank you so much, Hariba and Ram, for the wonderful platform. I hope my screen is visible to all. Sorry. I hope it's visible.
Yes, Naman.
All right, lovely. Namaste, good morning, Adab and Sat Sri Akal. I'm Naman Sonpal, and I'm the young campaigner at STC India and the founder of Hari Koshish. Today, we have a presentation for all of you on business rights and child principles. Child rights and business principles may have long-term, possibly permanent repercussions on children. Childhood is a special time of intense physical and psychological growth during which young people's physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being can be permanently influenced for the better or the worse. And during a child's development years, he or she requires adequate nourishment, clean water and care, and compassion. Businesses should involve and observe the following principles laid down by STC India and UNICEF. Your first principle. The first principle is to meet the responsibility to respect children's rights and commit to supporting the human rights of children. The rule goes just like it sounds. Respecting the rights of every child is not only a necessity, but it is also a fundamental duty. I request everyone to keep track of the keywords which we will be mentioning. Your keyword for the first rule is human rights. Rule number 2. The second principle is to contribute to the elimination of child labor, including in all business activities and business relationships. A child is in a state of physiological development and growth. Restricting them in a state of child labor blocks their thinking capacity and causes faults in their mental growth and mental development. For this rule, your keywords are no child labor, I hope all these keywords stick with you till the end of the presentation and definitely always in your memories. Principle number 3. Rule number 3 goes the following way. Provide decent work for young workers, parents, and caregivers. Parents and caregivers form a major part of a child's emotional development. Allotting unsafe work conditions for their caregivers may also leave the children in a huge emotional turmoil. Now, I understand this is very important to get inside your brain, but the keywords for this principle are decent work. Rule number 4. Ensure the protection and safety of children in all business activities and facilities. Of course, children's safety comes first. The keywords are protection and safety. Rule 5 or Principle 5. Ensure that products and services are safe and seek to support children's rights through them. Now, this rule is in direct link to rule number 4. It goes with are also linked to rule 4, and they are safe and supportive. Rule 6. Use marketing and advertising that respect and support children's rights. Exposing children to any sort of wrong marketing, forcing them to perform any action, or wrongfully portraying anyone's story for advertisement is a crime. It completely ruins the child's mental state of mind and leaves them in a state of confusion and worry. I understand it is a little difficult to fully get this rule inside your brain, but it is very, very important. And your keywords are child-friendly marketing. Rule number 7. Respect and support children's rights in relation to the environment and to land acquisition and use. Earth rights are child rights, and it's high time we understand this. So I want everyone to chant this me once again. Earth rights are child rights. Your keywords for this rule are respect environment. Rule number 8. Rule number 8 states, respect and support children's rights in security arrangements. Children's security goes hand in hand with anything else. And the keywords are straight and simple, child security. Rule 9. Help protect children affected by emergencies. A child encloses itself in a box sort of a unit when one undergoes a stage of trauma or a stage of war. It is of utmost importance to provide the correct therapy or the correct treatment to any child affected by any emergency to ensure a beautiful future for them ahead. The keywords for this rule are protection in emergencies. And your last principle or the last rule is to reinforce community and government efforts to protect and fulfill children's rights. It is high time we have policies for the better and ensure a safer future for the generation restoration, or as I put it, the now generation. It is in our hands to rest our future. The keywords are to reinforce government efforts. Now, I hope you all have kept track of all the keywords with you in your mind or jotted them down somewhere, because now it's quiz time. I would request all of you to kindly choose 2 of the correct columns from the list of the words given below and write down the correct option from A, B, C in the chat box. 2 of them are correct and 1 of them is wrong. I want the 2 correct options in the chat box, please. Lovely, we're getting many answers. I see we have a very, very smart audience here. Absolutely. The correct answers are A and B, and these are all of the keywords. I hope you keep these keywords with you in your mind. And coming on to the end of the presentation, I want you all to remember every right for every child, for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naman, for that presentation. Naman is also an advocate for Save Children's campaign called Climate Canvas. Am I right there, Naman? And other campaigns of Save the Children. And we have with us Save the Children, one of the drafters and designers of the business principles along with the UNICEF, who come up with business principles for child rights. And I hand it over now to Pragya, who has been part of campaigns for many years. I had the privilege of being with her on the 9 is Mine campaign years ago when it was founded. And now she's been with Save the Children, leading advocacy and campaigns for so many years. So over to Pragya to give us an insight on as to are these business principles reflected strongly here? Because we know that corporate greed and our own consumerism is at the heart of the climate emergency we face right now. Over to you, Pragya.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you, Naman, for such a lucid presentation for all of us. So I think when I sort of talk about or respond to what you asked me to sort of interject on, I feel that business principles, child rights and business principles are not any distinct from any other frameworks that ensure the protection of the rights of children everywhere around the world. And we need to recognize, most importantly, the intersectionality of different frameworks, different, say, for instance, the guidelines that the governments adopt at the national and global level, because these become then the enforcement, their adoption and implementation then become key to holding the rights of children, to holding governments to the rights of children everywhere. When we talk about business principles, child rights, it's also very important to remember that this 2022 marks 10 years of child rights and business principles. And we have, so from the principles, when it was something which Save the Children, UNICEF and UN Global Compact, they drafted this. The idea was that to make not just governments and civil society, but businesses also accountable to protecting the rights of children, especially when it's for profit. And from there to now, we have come a long way. But still, we are a long way off from seeing their implementation across the world and across the different businesses. There's still a lot of work to be done, but also there is a lot to celebrate as well. There are businesses who have adopted it, whether we look at the tea gardens in Assam, or whether we look at IKEA or Shahi Exports, who have looked at the entire supply chain and worked with organizations like ourselves and UNICEF to ensure that these are incorporated, working alongside. What distinguishes child rights and business principles from any other CSR also is the fact that these are longer term associations. When we talk about protection of child rights, we also know that it cannot be achieved overnight. It's an incremental progress, and we have to keep at it till we end. This also requires businesses to invest in implementation or holding themselves accountable to child rights in the longer term. So that's something that we have been working, but there's still a lot desired to be achieved in this space. Second point that I would like to make, which I started with, was the intersectionality. It's so important to look at not businesses alone in isolation, but looking at them as a part of the larger societal collective who need to deliver. I mean, child rights is everyone's business. Ensuring child rights is not just one entity's business, whether it's an organization like ourselves, young people to be aware of what their rights are so that they can hold adults accountable to if those rights are denied. So it's a really kind of a compact between organizations, between young people, between adults, to have these conversations so that young people today who have taken on the big agenda, and I would just digress to say that it's so amazing to see that these sessions are being led by young people. So we know that, you know, the leadership is in the right hands, and adults need to work in ensuring that the society that we are living in is safer, sustainable, and greener for the children everywhere. In terms of child participation, one of the things which is very imperative that we all need to collectively work on for ensuring the participation of young people in the governance and decision making. And for climate in particular, especially when we are looking at children and groups of children and networks coming out stronger on the climate agenda, it's very important to demand something that sustains. And one of the things that we are looking at and we must collectively work towards is that how can India lead the way in establishing a youth caucus on climate so that they have a seat on the table, they can lead their agenda, and we adults are with them in ensuring that they have everything, because it's their issue and their leadership and the future that they will inherit. And we need to do all that it takes to ensure that they have the future that they deserve. So thank you so much.
Ram, any questions to Pragya? Thanks, Pragya. It's always insightful listening to you, and really for really encouraging young people. You come from an organization that believes in the participation of children and protection of their rights and promotion of their rights. So I think it came out very strongly in your presentation. Thank you very much.
The question is not related to environment, but related to child rights. So can we see places?
No better person than Pragya to take up those. So go ahead.
I didn't hear the question. Your voice just broke in the middle.
No, they're not giving us they're saying that the question is based on child rights. Can we ask Pragya? I said, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. In India, illegal child labor still exists. What can the government and the public do to stop child labor and give those children their child rights?
So, in terms of it requires, as I said, Adiba, I mean, and the question whoever has asked, the fact that child rights has to become everyone's business. It's not about, say, for instance, we have to even know what are the kind of mechanisms where we can report child labor. That's where it starts, like from individual to collective action. You have 1098 as a number you can call when you see a child engaged in labor, whether it's at a dhaba or whether it's at a tea stall, wherever you go. It's very important to recognize. It's very important to see ourselves. Here I'm responding to you as in what individuals could do. So first and most important step is to recognize that we are a part of the problem and we ought to be a part of the solution as well. So 1098 is a number that we can all call when we spot a child labor and report it. So it has to become a collective action. There are laws in our country. India is one of the really pioneering countries where we have the laws in place. Where we fail is the implementation of those laws. And I think that's where we need to strengthen that. And that can happen only when each one of our citizens play an active role in ensuring the enforcement of laws and mechanisms that are there to report. So, yeah.
Thank you, Pragya. We'll move on to the next presentation by directed towards the presence of World Vision. Jay Kumar, thank you for being with us on a Sunday, a day you normally dedicate to worship, but thank you for being here with our young people, reinforcing for us the commitment of World Vision to child rights and genuine participation. So over to the participation presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your information.
So let's welcome Adiba, Sheetal, and Ima ma'am to present the topic, which is genuine child participation. Over to you guys. So before they go on with the presentation, I would like to tell you some instructions that please, I would again like to remind you to continue reviewing our recommendations written in our local framework report and executive summary report to come up with your own recommendations. The links are available in the chat box. You may be thinking of editing your recommendation, you can do that. So, and please, all the child attendees, please don't share your personal information, for example, your contact number, your email IDs, your social media handles, or anything else. And please choose the language in which you are comfortable with. On the webinar screen, you'll see the option of interpretation. And we want you all guys to be present there on 4th and 5th of November, as those 2 days are very significant days, because the program will be held at international level. So yeah, over to you guys. You may take over.
Thank you, Ram. A very good morning. A very good afternoon to all. My name is Adiba, and today we will talk about child participation, especially in context of environment. To deepen our understanding of the same, we have Jay Kumar sir with us. Next slide. So let's begin our learning with a game. 2 pictures, 1 word. There are some rules for the game. You will be shown 2 images and have to guess 1 common word. We will give you jumbled letters as hint and you will have to guess the correct word. Isn't it simple? Come on, let's get started. Next picture. Okay, so here is our first set of pictures. Children have a lot of ideas that need to be heard, especially about their challenges and recommendations related to climate change. Yeah. I got a lot of answers in the chat. Yes, the correct word is opinion. Next. Okay, so here is our second set of pictures. Let's see who can guess this. We need to ensure the genuine participation of children from local, rural, Adivasi, Dalit, Muslim, and other vulnerable communities, including those with disability, in decision-making over their traditional lands, livelihoods, customs, culture, and way of life. The correct word is inclusion. Yes. Next. Okay, so let's see who can guess this one. Yes, I'm getting a lot of answers in chat box. Yes, I got the right answer. It's engagement. All children should be engaged in genuine public consultation processes provided under the environmental laws. Next slide. So here is the fourth picture. Yes, this is very easy to guess. Yes. Education is the right answer for this. Knowledge on environmental laws should be embedded into the formal schools curriculum to promote sustainability. Next. Let's see who can. Yes. Okay, so the right first word is budget for this. And it's very crucial to include our opinion in budget planning. Next. Yes. Let's see who can guess this one. It's all easy, I guess. Yes. Vulnerable is the right answer for this. Environmental disasters such as floods, drought, earthquake, etc. add to the vulnerability of affected children. In such areas, children's relief camps should be built with their consultation considering their requirements. Next picture. Yes. It's very easy. Yeah. The correct word is assessment. Children should be involved in regular reviews of environmental laws and policies. Yeah. Next. Yes, this was the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for engaging in this game. I request you to keep promoting genuine child participation in all aspects of child rights and environmental rights. Please don't forget.
Sorry, go ahead.
Please don't forget to check the charter. And if there's anything missing in the 10 recommendations, you can send in your ideas in the chat box. Thank you.
So whatever you write in the chat box, we'll be documenting. So that's your space to keep writing in stuff like Virendra and others are doing. Please keep doing that. Now we hand it over to Jay Kumar, who is the network coordinator of World Vision and really has been involved in advocacy for children and with children at the national level and international levels too. Jaykumar will respond again to our charter from a perspective of child participation. Thank you, Jaykumar, once again for being with us on a Sunday morning.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Steve, and the entire Pratyek and the 9 is Mine team. This is a wonderful initiative you have taken, mainly on the ecological rights of children. And coming back to the key point, first I wanted to highlight that child protection, child participation, it's a core of our child rights. It's one of the component. So whatever policy we frame or whatever we do, child participation should be at the center. So children should be at the center of any planning. The second point is the children not as a participant. We involve children in participating as a tokenism in climate discussion, but they should be partners, stakeholders, key stakeholders in the climate planning. And the third one is children are not the change agents for tomorrow. They are change makers for today. We see the children who are facilitating and managing and advocating for their own rights. Coming back to my key feedback to the key recommendations, you have come up with the 10 recommendations. It's very wonderfully designed and all the aspects you are touching it. My added, just adding one or two points to make it more relevant. The first one is you come up with the education rights. Number one, that right to holistic green education. In that one, what I wanted to mention is we have to mention the government policies that are addressing. Instead of more generic, it should be maybe the right to education or the national education policy to have this. These policies are mentioned over there. The climate, the child recommendation are reflecting in that one. The another aspect is about the child parliament in schools, and which are very critical, where the children themselves are able to advocate at the young age in their own school. The second point I wanted to mention is the governance. You have rightly made it governance. In the governance also, UNCRC and the General Statement 26, which has been highlighted very well. What I wanted to mention is, in India, we have a policy on national policy for children. How that is captures the climate, the children's climate change on children, that can capture how it is reflecting. That need to be brought in, and that will be a great emphasis on that one. The third one is about the budget piece, which is the last one, 10th one. Children participation in budget, national budget process or state budget process or the district level budget process are very, very critical. Even we have to go at the level of the panchayats, where the children will be one of the partners or the stakeholders in designing the district or panchayat level budgeting. And so this will enable children to talk about their climate challenges as well as the recommendation in that one. So because this document will be shared at the state level, national level, global level, it is all the more important to mention these aspects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay Kumar. We'll move quickly to the next section because we just have 10 minutes to wind up and young people have got other commitments. Thank you to all of you who stayed on and stayed engaged. Remember to keep coming back to your chat box and input to us from what experts like Jay Kumar and Pragya have shared with you. but from your own experience and learning, give us inputs too. We're going to quickly jump into a slide on child rights. We kept it for the last, we kept the best for the last, where we will explain some of the rights that impinge upon ecological rights. See if they covered all these rights. We're just going to name a few. So, Jeevan, can you share the slide on the rights? Yes. So you have 54 articles on child rights. 45 of them we believe can be demanded by you, exercised by you, enjoyed by you, and by all children of India, particularly the last child. There should be no discrimination. Number two, in our evolution of rights, the best interest of children, number three, should be taken into consideration when you're making all these policies. Number four is, as Annie said, governments must be kept responsible for this. It's the governments who sign this document. They are being paid for and being elected to ensure these rights. They need to do their job. The right to life, number six, is impacted by these laws and by climate change, and that must be considered. Number 12 and 13 are interesting, and this platform does emphasize that, is your right to your opinions and expression, a child's right to speak and to be heard. And that's amazing on the climate change campaigns and climate change movement. It is child-led. I think you guys are changing the way the world has been doing business. It's no longer business as normal, and you're saying your business is my business, and the government's business and the business's business is mine, and you're claiming your space. So congratulations to young people, and particularly the ones who've stayed on the whole 3 hours and said, look, I'm serious about this. I want to know more about this. I'm going to be part of the change I wish to see in the world. Number 24 is the right to health, and it's about the best access to healthcare as well. Number 27, interestingly, is the most significant one here, which is the best standard of living. You have a right to a decent standard of living, and you're claiming that right now by mentioning your rights today. The right to education has been emphasized, 28. There are 2 articles on the right to education, 28 and 29, and both of them have been emphasized today. The right to play and leisure and engage with the environment is one of your rights, and that's what you're claiming here. 36 lastly talks about exploitation. So I know Neha had a presentation. We've shortened it right now, only because of the lack of time, but I'll comment on this itself. Firstly, congratulations. You have gone a step beyond the UN. The UN is talking about environmental rights. You're talking about ecological rights. There's a difference. Environment are things in nature, and it's kind of static. But ecological is about relationship, how one affects the other, how one influences the other. And you're talking about a community and your rights as members of the community. So congratulations on reflecting that in your document. Number 2 is, if I go to the next slide, Jeevan, do you have something on, yes. So there are 33 cases that are recorded by children who have taken their governments to court. And these are across countries like USA, Uganda, Belgium, Norway, and including India. Ridhima Pandey has taken her government to court. Australia, Mexico, and various people have taken their governments to court. Congratulations, young people, for claiming your space even in the legal spaces. And the emphasis that courts have had so far on intergenerational equity, that there should be equity between generations and the generations to come as well. It's about age-based discrimination. Because you're young and you don't have access to money and protection sometimes, you need to be given further rights. And because of that, you are feeling the impact of climate change more than adults would. The best interest of the child must be taken into consideration. The right to health and the right to life and development is what the conversations are happening in courts, claiming that the rights is your basis of your protocol that you're asking for. It has endorsed all the principles of child rights. Congratulations there on that. But what you've actually added is a whole missing section to CRC. The Convention on the Rights of Child is so silent on your specific right to ecology, and you've claimed it right at the start. You've also claimed in this entire process that there can be nothing about children without children. It's come up very strongly in your report. Congratulations. You've also emphasized the most vulnerable person. And actually, you've also working towards another movement that's happening that says the earth itself has rights. So not only do children have earth rights, but Naman, I'll flip your slogan to say child rights are earth rights. So whatever rights children have because they're vulnerable, the earth should also have. I'm placing that challenge before you, young people, to start a movement on saying that the earth itself has rights. Strangely, our own scriptures and our India is so full of it, recognizes that Dharti is Ma, Ganga is Ma. So let's take that only from our temples and from our churches into the streets and ensure that Ganga and Dharti and the moon and the sun all share rights with us. I love your idea of constitutions being framed. It's so important. The Adivasis of Australia are demanding that, saying, make us part of your constitutions. The Maoris in New Zealand are saying, if anything happens to our mother river, we will take you to court and make sure our voices as Maoris, as Adivasis are represented in court cases. So they've made it actually a right for Adivasis of New Zealand will have a special right to speak on behalf of the environment. And I think that's true of all Adivasis across the world. Finally, I'm going to ask you to challenge you to look at an earth spirituality. Now, maybe a word that people may not like, but perhaps intuition. If you're connected with the earth, you will respond the way the earth does. You won't do it as an act of violence. You won't do it as an act of supremacy, but an act of connection. So I'm asking all of you, like Sandhya introduced us to silence in the beginning. That's an act of trying to connect up with the wisdom of the universe. And lastly, it's an upside down theory that you're presenting to us. Look at children who are the most vulnerable and traditionally not seem to having a voice, are actually speaking up for Mother Earth. And let's go to the level of being able to listen to Mother Earth itself. In short, I want to say, wow. Wow, meaning what words of wisdom I've heard today. Wow, because it was words of warning as well. Wow, because it was wonders of the world that you placed before us and wonders of the next generation. You're also saying wow because you're saying walk our way. You're saying wow, not as in with or without us, with or without, but saying with us children, nothing about us without us. And finally, you're saying now. There is no other way but to engage us now. The time is now, the place is here, we are the people. And finally, you've introduced us now to a new order of working. Congratulations, everyone who's taken part here. If there are any questions, I'll let the expert, as in Jay Kumar, explain that to us. But once again, wow, and now. Thank you everyone for participating here. I'll hand over the floor to Ram and Adiba to conclude, as well as we're having some kilometers. So hang on for a few minutes. We're just winding up right now. So do stay on us for a few more minutes as we go through the concluding session. Ram and Adiba.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Now we have Naman for the very exciting part of our event. That is the quiz. As I mentioned you before the event also to take the session seriously, because I told you the awards are also there for the quiz winners. So over to you, Naman.
Thank you so much, Ram. I hope you all had your heads intact and all your points jotted down. It's quiz time. We're going to be using a platform called Quizzes for the Quiz, and I've shared the link in chat with you all. I request you all to join in with your full name and not any other nickname, please.
Naman, for child protection issues, can we just have their first name mentioned there?
Sure.
But no nicknames as you asked for.
Works. We only have what 44 participants till now. I'm requesting everyone to please join in. It's a very short quiz. It won't take long for sure. I think I'll start the quiz now. We have about 75 people in. I'll be sharing my screen with the leaderboard now. Thank you everyone for playing in. And here are your winners. First is Elizabeth.
Congratulations, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much everyone for joining in.
Naman, they want to know who the second and the third person are.
Surely. Sorry, 1 second.
Okay, while you do that, we'll get ready for the feedback. But before that, can we have the way forward once again? Young campaigners who are here with us, you have assignments to follow. If you really want to change this entire world, we've given you a handle to change the document. Please send in your comments. We will send the documents to you as you asked for as an email. All the links we shared with you, we'll share that with you. And for the way forward, don't forget there's a program on the 3rd of November, an Asia level platform for General Comment 26. On the 4th in the evening from 5:30 to 7:30, we will meet once again. Thanks, Naman. Sagarika has got second place as well. We come back to our presentation. Jeevan, can you present the way forward presentation once again? And we're coming back to the 4th and the 5th. Kindly make sure you get as many participants there. Let's say the challenge is, I said 1 for 100 students to one child, but let's see if we can get 26 for 26. Okay, 26 students for General Comment 26, or 27 for 27 students for COP 27. The challenge is yours. We have something's beeping. Naman, I think your presentation is beeping. Okay, so the way forward, we go down. Don't forget the 4th and the 5th, 5:30 to 7:30. Come again on Saturday morning from 10:30 to 12:30. The speakers will be different. I remind you, once again, we're going to have speakers from across the world who are actually going to COP27. They will have only 3 minutes to share with you what they're going to say at COP27. Number 2 is what they expect from COP27, so you understand what's COP27 about. And lastly, they will tell you something more about your ecological rights. We will edit it and bring it to the platform on Friday and Saturday. We want you to be there on both the days. If you're there for all 3, you get a special certificate because you're really helping us create a strong document. Okay, it's not just for the certificate. I hope you're doing it for the cause of real environmental challenges we're facing and really to change the course of history. Also, we'll be having a MCOP in January. And IN is inclusive and India international. It's also M as a model, UN, you know that, MUNs, you know. But MCOP is about having a COP. I'm going to introduce it very simply to you right now, but we really need your participation of schools across India and the world there. What we're going to do is, you're going to pretend that you're a nation of the world. Do research on what you think the country will be saying about General Comment 26, about ecological rights for children. Write a statement, write the responses of the government, and finally, write to the government and say, we think you're going to say this, but we would like you to say that. What do you want them to say? So Sunday is going to type in the General Comment link to you. You will see the countries that have responded already. India has not responded, but as yet, but we have time to influence India's response. But there are other countries who have. A number of countries from Europe have responded and Africa have responded. You can tell the country what you want. We'll compile all your statements. Listen to this. We're going to compile all your statements and we will send it to all the embassies across the world, the governments across the world, and embassies in India and say, look, this is what our children are saying to influence ecological rights. So don't be a chicken, speak strong rights for children is what you're going to say to them, not in those words, of course, but very politically correct language. But you're actually going to influence world policy. So all our platforms at Ninus Mind are not just about uh, protests and about painting competitions, but it's really giving you platforms to change policies. Even as I speak right now, Violet is packing her bags to go to Geneva and actually influence the human rights um, conversations there of India to say, India, let's talk about earth rights as well. So let's wish her all the very best. And we wish Karthik also, who's going to take your document with him because he's the India representative of a child to the Committee on the Rights of the Child when the countries are finally going to decide in June. So I want you to rest assured that your voices are actually going to be heard by governments. Okay, so thank you for giving us this time. It's been 3 long hours and a little more, but thank you once again for that. Remember, in MCOP, we wanted to take part in that and ask other people also from the school to take part in it. One child, one nation, or we may have more, but we would have all of you present there to change the world's course of history. And that's what you're engaged with. But for now, don't forget to take part on the 3rd of November, but more importantly, on the 4th and 5th, and get 100 students to be there. Thank you to the entire team. Thanks, Ram and Adiba. Thanks to all the presenters. You were amazing. You really stole the show and really claimed the space that there's nothing going to be about children without us children. Thanks to all the young people that represented the various states of India and also represented with different vulnerable groups and voices. Thank you so much for your participation. Thanks to the Pratik team who this morning found themselves without an office and locked office, and they had to work outside on the streets, and they brought this entire production to you, starting from the roadside, expressing the vulnerabilities of people who don't have homes at this place. So thank you, Pratik team, for all the hard work you put in. You've been with our students all the while preparing them, struggling with all network connectivity and so on. I really wanted to thank you for being part of the change we see right now.